What the president discussed with the foreign minister was wholly appropriate to that conversation and is consistent with the routine sharing of information between the president and any leaders with whom he's engaged. I'm not concerned at all. That conversation was wholly appropriate to the conversation, and I think wholly appropriate what the expectations are of our intelligence partners. I was in the room. The Secretary of State was in the room, as you know. The Deputy Assistant, the Deputy Advisor for National Security, Dina Powell for Strategy, was in the room, and none of us felt in any way that that conversation was inappropriate.
All right, that was National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster earlier today at the White House in the press briefing, saying that what President Trump discussed with the Russian foreign minister last week was completely appropriate. But the destroyed Trump left. They continue to try and take the president down, and these leaks, where are they coming from? They need to stop. Joining us now with reaction, Deputy Assistant to the President, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Current and former officials. Now, it comes from the same newspaper, by the way, that said that the Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein threatened to quit, but he did an interview, said, no, I never threatened to quit. And then, of course, they were suggesting that days before Comey left, that James Comey had said he wanted more funding, and McNabb, the interim FBI director, said, no, we have enough funds, we're adequately funded. And the list goes on, and now tonight it's the New York Times. Oh, did Donald Trump ask to end the Flynn probe by a bitter, angry Comey who didn't care a whit about the rule of law and equal justice under the law as it relates to Hillary?
Sean, I think we have to go to the next stage. It's no longer fake news. It's now dishonest news. It's not about a political agenda. It's politics above national security. We've gone through the numbers just since February. Let's look at what has been leaked to the press. I'm just going to give you a handful. The AP leaked the conversation to the President of Mexico. Washington Post leaked the conversation to Australia. Politico leaked the one to Paris, and Reuters one of the calls to the Kremlin. When is it going to stop? When is the conspiracy theory insanity of the resist movement, of the Ben Rhodes, Colin Kahl nexus, going to say, look, we're not going to endanger national security anymore. We're going to do actual journalism.
Sebastian,
it has
Dr.
to
Gorka,
stop.
When is the leaking then going to stop? This has to be coming. Well, either they're making it all up, and by the way, the Washington Post was so wrong so often. The fact that they were breathlessly reporting everything they said last night after last week's disastrous accuracy rating is pretty amazing. And then, of course, the eruption in the Washington Post newsroom. I guess my question is, okay, if they're leaking the Australian conversations with the Australian Prime Minister and people in the Kremlin and elsewhere around the world, that means that's the deep state intelligence community doing it. Has to be coming from there, doesn't it?
Can I just say two things? Number one, the bad news is that there are people that unfortunately we've inherited that don't recognize who the president is and that his primary responsibility is to protect America. And they think they know better, and they think they're allowed to call their friends up at the Washington Post, the Politico, the Huffington Post. That is illegal. That's felonious activity that could endanger not only Americans.
Dr. Gorka, nobody's been held responsible for the felony violation of the Espionage Act with Michael Flynn. Nobody's been held accountable for unmasking, even if it's incidental surveillance, the unmasking, and then the leaking of intelligence, raw intelligence. You know, nobody's been held accountable so far. Nobody's fired. How many Obama holdovers still exist in these communities?
Well, you have to keep doing what you do. Sarah Carter has to keep doing what she does, because you've nailed it. Sean, the biggest story of the last 8 years, not 8 weeks, 8 years, is not just the unmasking and the leak to the Washington Post, but why were those transcripts written? Who wrote the taskers? Because those taskers cannot be justified on the basis of national security. They were clearly politically motivated. When Sarah Carter, when Sean Hannity gets to the bottom of that, we will have a story that makes Watergate look like a fairy tale.
All right, Dr. Gorka, great to see you as always. When we come back.